What's going on? Welcome into NBA Now from Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jimmy Crowther, and today I'm breaking down the Philadelphia 76ers whole roster from the top all the way down to the bottom. And it's going to be a fun year if you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan. And I want you to predict the 76ers record for next season. They had a great year last year. They look to build on that again next season. I expect them to be a close to, if not 50-win team in the Eastern Conference. I think that is more than reasonable. So with this roster breakdown, we're going to start with the starting five. It only makes sense. And this is what I think is going to be the starting five when opening night comes for the 2019-2020 season. Ben Simmons and Josh Richardson. That's your new backcourt now that J.J. Redick isn't there and Jimmy Butler's not there. Tobias Harris is now moving back into the small forward position with Al Horford at the power forward and Joel Embiid in the middle. So let's start out with Ben Simmons, a man that got the bag this summer. 5-year, $170 million max deal, max extension. This summer came for Ben Simmons. You know, we've seen some videos of the man working on his jump shot throughout the summer in different gyms and different pickup games. We'll see if that actually translates come October, come September, whenever training camp rolls around. I'm excited to see what Ben Simmons does this next year. I think he needs to take another step forward if Philly wants to be a true title threat. I mean, their core is clear at this point. It's Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and Al Horford now that they even added him in there. Speaking of Joel Embiid, last season, just a monster year for the big man. 27.5 points per game, 14 boards, 4 assists, and showed that he can stretch the floor as a center, 30% from beyond the three-point arc. That may need to take a little jump forward, but Joel Embiid's going to be a stud. He already is a stud. He could be an MVP caliber player next season if he can stay healthy and if he can push his team into that Eastern Conference top 1 or 2 seed. And I think Joel Embiid can definitely do that. I'm excited to watch him next year. I'm excited to watch all the NBA next season. I'm going to be keeping you covered with it here on Chat Sports. So you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. Get us to 150K. We're sitting at a little over 130. We want to get that way, way, way up. So hit the big red button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We'll be keeping you updated with all NBA coverage all the time. Let's talk about Tobias Harris. Obviously familiar with the Philadelphia 76ers organization. They definitely prioritized him this summer. That's why he got the max contract worth 5 years, a $180 million deal. You know, they traded for him last season. He stepped up in a big way. Last year, he averaged nearly 20 points per game. Actually, exactly 20 points per game between his time with the Philadelphia 76ers and the LA Clippers. Tobias Harris brings you something that you don't really have in that starting five in a knockdown three-point shooter and just a bucket getter. That's what Tobias Harris is. I think he's an underrated small forward at this point in his career. Speaking of underrated, Al Horford at the power forward position. Talk about a great pickup for this Philly team. 4-year, $109 million deal with Philadelphia. Maybe they overpaid for him, but only $97 million of that contract was fully guaranteed for the veteran big man. And look, they needed another big man next to Joel Embiid. That's what Al Horford brings you. He's great on defense. He can defend the 4. He can defend the 5. He can knock down a 3 at 36%. He's a good rebounder. I think this was an underrated pickup. I'm excited to see how he fits with Joel Embiid. It's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. Another new Philadelphia 76er, Josh Richardson, got sent to Philly from Miami in that Jimmy Butler deal that sent Butler to the Heat, which was just completely unexpected. But now Josh Richardson did go to the 76ers. I expect him to start at the 2-guard position. I think most people would agree with me on that one. He's a really good scorer. I mean, in Miami, he was one of, if not the best scorer alongside Justice Winslow as well. 17 points per game. That's what you need in this lineup around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is just a pure scorer. And he's a good defender. You know, he can defend the point guard. He can defend the 2-guard. He can defend some threes as well if you don't want Tobias Harris defending some small forwards. I think this was a great pickup for Philadelphia because they got something in return for Jimmy Butler. Josh Richardson will fit in nicely in that starting five. So who do you think will be the 76ers MVP in 2019-2020? I think it's really between two guys. It's Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. But which one is going to be the better player? Let me know in the comment section below. After you do that, here's what I want you to do. Go to our friends at MyBookie. Use promo code CHATNBA, chatsports.com/NBA now. Sign up, place your first deposit. You put down $50, they're going to give you $50. And then email us, promo@chatsports.com, and I'm going to hook you up. with a brand new edition when it comes out September 6th of NBA 2K20. You can play with the Philadelphia 76ers all you want. Let's talk about the role players in Philly because honestly, there's not a lot of depth to this team. It's the starting five and then everybody else. You got Shake Milton. You got Zhaire Smith. They brought back James Ennis. They keep Mike Scott, and they bring in Kyle O'Quinn. Let's break them down one by one for you. Starting with Shake Milton, the SMU product. I'm actually a big fan of him. I thought he was going to be a really good player coming out of college, but he faced a lot of different injuries. You know, he was on a two-way, and they saw enough out of him to where they signed him to a multi-year contract this summer. He only played in 20 games last year, and when he did, there wasn't a lot of production. It was 4 points, 2 boards, not a lot there. But now you need a true backup because TJ McConnell is gone to Ben Simmons, and they're hoping Shake Milton can turn into that. Plus, he's got a really cool name, so you know it's going to work out. Now, shooting guard, backup shooting guard here. Zhaire Smith, another super cool name coming off the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers. How about that? Now, he missed most of his rookie year coming out of Texas Tech, and he lost so much weight that he couldn't even play. He didn't even have the necessary body weight to go and play in the NBA. But he got that back up. There was a point in time where he couldn't even do a push-up. His shoulder was so messed up. But now, he's back to being able to play. He played really well in the summer league. And when he was healthy near the end of the year, he showed a lot of promise. He's a great athlete, and he can become a better jump shooter as well. I think Philadelphia really needs him to be good if they want their depth to be impressive. Now, they kept this guy, James Ennis, to bolster their depth, and he's a great defender. I mean, James Ennis can defend 2s, 3s. He can even defend some 4s as well. And they signed him to a pretty team-friendly deal at 2 years, $4.1 million. Plus, something that Philadelphia is dying for, is that he can shoot the 3 ball, 35% from the 3 last season. I like James Ennis. I think this was an underrated signing for the 76ers, keeping him on their team. Mike Scott. Now, this is a guy that I often overlook, I'll admit it, and I think a lot of other people do too, but Mike Scott's becoming a true stretch 4 in the NBA today. He provides a lot of energy, he's a good athlete, and then, like I said, that 3-point shooting is what you really need from him at 40% when he gets his chances. You know, he doesn't get a lot of opportunities with this Philadelphia team, but when he does, when he has, he's showed a lot of production. I think Mike Scott's going to be important for them next year, backing up Al Horford, maybe starting on some nights when they need a smaller 4, whatever it may be. Mike Scott's going to bring the energy and the emoji tattoos, of course. Now, Kyle O'Quinn, best beard in the game next to James Harden. Signed a 1-year veteran minimum deal this past year with the 76ers. He kind of got buried in that Indiana Pacers depth chart because they had Miles Turner. They had Thaddeus Young. They had Domantas Sabonis. And Kyle O'Quinn didn't really get a chance to shine there. But now he comes in, and he has to be, he literally has to be Philadelphia's backup center to Joel Embiid. You know, maybe you like some of the other guys we'll get into a little bit later, but Kyle O'Quinn is the most experienced one coming off the bench. He's defensively tough. He's pretty rugged when it comes to rebounding and playing the defensive center position. And he's got a soft offensive touch. You know, he can float in and around the rim. He's a little undersized, but I like this pickup for the 76ers. I think it was an overlooked one for sure. So which role player for Philly, because they got to have someone, have a breakout season? Let me know. I'm going to go ahead and say Zhaire Smith. I think he comes back healthy and ready to play. But let me know who you think it might be. Maybe you think it's one of these 3 guys, the youngsters. That's what I like to call them because they're young. That's basically why I call them that. So you got Matisse Thybulle. He's the new rookie coming out of Washington. I was a huge fan of this guy going into the draft. I think he's going to be a steal. Jonah Bolden played a little bit last year, and then Furkan Korkmaz as well. Matisse Thybulle, though, this is the guy the 76ers traded up to get in the draft. They targeted him. Long wingspan and the best college defender, like the best collegiate defender. I love Matisse Thybulle. He's got great 3-and-D upside. The defense is definitely more there than the 3-point shot is because he only shot 31% in his time at Washington last season. You can see the numbers, and you're like, Jimmy, how the heck was this guy a first-round pick with 9 points, 3 boards, and 2 assists? Well, he also averaged 3 steals and 2 blocks as a shooting guard. It's just ridiculous, unheard of. I love Thybulle. I think Philadelphia is going to benefit from bringing him on. Now, another guy they hope steps up this next year is Jonah Bolden because they got to have a young big man step up, and they're hoping it's Bolden. You know, he only played in 44 games last season, but of the 44 he played in, he started in 10 of them, which was a good starting point for Bolden. He's a good athlete. He's a good energy guy down low. still needs to take time to develop. He was a second-round pick in the 2017 draft. He hasn't fully gotten there to get regular rotation minutes, but maybe this next year is the year that Jonah Bolden steps up. I like him. I actually had him as their backup center, backup 4 behind Al Horford. Kind of forgot about Mike Scott, but not yet. I'm going to keep Mike Scott in front of him for now. Another guy that's pretty young and hopefully up and coming on their team is Furkan Korkmaz. Look, he showed a lot in his first summer league as being a three-point shooter and then didn't show it once he got to the NBA. When he played, and it wasn't a lot, his rookie year he played 14 games. His sophomore season he played 48 games. Maybe this next year he ups that up again. But last year, 6 points and whatever. The three-point percentage wasn't where you wanted it to be. You kind of expect this guy to be a 37 to 38% three-point shooter, and that's going to be his bread and butter in the NBA. He was only 32.6% from 3 last year. He's got to step up. He's got to be a better shooter if he wants to get regular rotation minutes in Philadelphia's system. Now, what seed will Philadelphia be in the Eastern Conference next year? They got high expectations. They had pretty high expectations going into last year. Now, it's even higher now that Toronto is kind of out of the picture when it comes to that top 2 or 3 seeds in the East. I'm going to predict them as a 2 seed, but let me know what you guys think. So let's talk about the rest of this roster, because these are all kind of the question marks that Philadelphia has going into training camp, going into the 2019-2020 season. Raul Neto, Trey Burke, Marial Shayok, Norvel Pelle, and then Koumadje. Again, big question marks all around for this back half of the roster. Raul Neto signed a 1-year veterans minimum deal. He was a good backup point guard for a little bit with the Utah Jazz, and maybe he'll compete for that backup point guard position next year. But I think he gets beat out. I think Shake Milton will be the backup point guard, and really, I like Trey Burke more than I like Neto anyway. Trey Burke signed a 1-year deal with the 76ers, but that deal is only partially guaranteed. Whereas Neto gets more, he gets the veterans minimum. It's a guaranteed deal. Trey Burke's going to have to come in. He's going to have to compete for a spot on this bench, and I think he'll win that spot eventually. He's a scoring-centric reserve point guard, but 11 points per game, and that's what he does. He scores. He doesn't pass the ball real well. He doesn't rebound really well for a point guard. He's a good shooter at 35.2%. I think he's going to end up beating out the other guys for that backup point guard position besides Shake Milton. So we'll see what happens there. Now, one guy that's on a 2-way contract, and we'll see how much he actually plays, is Marial Shayok. He was drafted late in the second round of this last year's draft, played for Virginia, and then moved to Iowa State. It was a big transition because after leaving Virginia, he took a huge step forward to Iowa State, and then he played really well in the summer league for Philadelphia as well. Now, last year in college, so these aren't his summer league stats, these are his collegiate stats, the dude put up 19 points per game and 5 boards. And he's a good shooter as well, 38.6%, and a good defender. But being on a 2-way, we'll see what happens with his playing time in the NBA. Their other 2-way contract went to Norvel Pelle, who, I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about. I didn't know a whole lot about before this, but I know that he's a good backup big man in the G League. He had some good moments there. Maybe that translates to the NBA eventually. I don't think that's next season. And then finally, Koumadje out of Florida State. Big man. I mean, not just big, giant, huge. I mean, the guy is ridiculously big at 7'4". Provides a lot of size, but there's very limited skill there for Koumadje. And the details of his deal with Philadelphia is a little bit unclear. Played in the summer league. We'll see if he's just a camp invite. Maybe he gets a partially guaranteed deal. Whatever it may be, you gotta love seeing a 7'4" dude on your bench. So speaking of the reserves, these are the guys that we don't really know about yet. Who's got the better chance at making the final roster? As a backup point guard, think it's Neto, type N. If you think it's Burke, type B. I'm going to type my B for Burke. I like Trey Burke a lot, and I think he's a perfect backup to Ben Simmons.